Day one of the talks between the centre and farmer groups that started at 3 this afternoon after perhaps the government realised that December 3 was too far away, was bad optics, or just plain insensitive. Well, those talks have been inconclusive as expected. Now, in our video yesterday, I broke down the Central Agricultural Law, the one most unacceptable to farmers, the APMC bypass law. There are two other laws farmers are against. We're putting the spotlight on another mouthful tonight. It's called the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Services Act 2020. And obviously, in this video, we're going to refer to it as the Contract Farming Law. As the name suggests, here a farmer gets into a contract with a private buyer, usually companies. There must be a legal document laying down terms of that deal, including the price the farmer will get for his or her produce. The private buyer can tell the farmer exactly when the produce should be delivered, its quality, the kind of soil and seeds, etc. that they should use. Once the farmer agrees, a price is often decided beforehand, a contract will be signed, and the deal will be made. Now, the new law essentially creates a nationwide legal framework for such transactions directly between the farmer and the buyer. The law also lays out what should happen if such a contract is breached, how the farmer should be protected, at least in theory. Let's make a quick pros and cons list to try and understand this particular law a little better. Pros: it's entirely voluntary. The new law isn't new in that sense because over the past 3 decades, 21 states and union territories have already set up markets in the private sector where such transactions take place. In fact, contract farming has been a big part of Punjab's farming. So the cons. From that experience, we actually know that this model only works or mainly works for big farmers. That's because companies want to buy in bulk, they want a consistent quality, so big farmers enter into contracts with big players. They have money, influence, and often the middlemen. They'll also have the business sense and resources to store their crop when the prices crash and then sell them when prices are high, whereas small or medium farmers or the marginal farmers, they're going to be forced to sell at a lower price. Now, another pro: increased private investment in agriculture, certainly the kind the government is not up for right now. Now, companies that enter into contracts with mostly big farmers are possibly also going to help them out with clearing, preparing the land for sowing, heavy equipment, seeds, and other kind of advice. So, what could be wrong with this kind of an arrangement? The cons: these companies are not interested in the small and medium farmers. They can also exploit these farmers financially since there is no minimum price the farmer can demand. Small farmers don't stand a chance if tomorrow their big client turns around and says that this particular produce doesn't match a particular subclause in the contract and so you'll get 50% of the pre-decided price. Now, even if the best contracts are executed, the cost of grievance redressal will be one more cost or one more anxiety for the farmer, making it even less likely that small farmers are going to go ahead and pursue justice. There's one important note here that the new law says that in case of conflict, once the district magistrate passes a verdict, there is no further scope to escalate it to a civil court. Now let's paint all this information, this pros and cons list, into a larger landscape. As we mentioned earlier, contract farming as practiced in India has generally excluded the marginal and small farmers. 86% of India's farmers have a landholding size of less than 5 acres. So imagine them negotiating with the big guns. Number 2, contract farming has had a whole host of malpractices. So a new act that clearly states that farmlands cannot be leased, mortgaged, or bought by the contracting agency should ideally be welcomed. That fear, many are suggesting, actually stems from a lack of a trustworthy authority. Now, in the traditional system, it is the APMCs, the Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee we spoke about yesterday, that resolves disputes. The farmers are familiar with the members. Don't get me wrong, in many states, APMCs are very powerful blocks by themselves and they continue to hold on to their positions, not holding elections, etc. Another aspect, contract farming is often reserved for crops that don't sell in APMC mandis. So when PepsiCo, for instance, buys potatoes for its chips and wafers, it's contract farming because it's a particular low sugar variety good for chips but not really palatable for your aloo ka paratha. Over time, the big trader, the corporate or the contracting agency will also want the farmers to grow more such foods like, let's say, Spanish tomatoes or gherkins to export. Now, this may not necessarily be what the Indian market wants. The fourth aspect is a feeling that the center is trampling on the domain of states by making laws on state subjects, particularly with respect to contract farming, which has more to do with farming, which is on the state list, and less really to do with marketing. Activities such as production, trade, supply are on the concurrent list. As we know, they're governed both by states and center. The last thing that I want to say is private investments in any sector, and we have the examples of education and health, never come in a vacuum just because there is a change in law, but mainly due to incentives. We'll have to wait and watch what these incentives will be. In conclusion, it seems broadly that the core of the farmers' fear is arising from the APMC bypass law, which we unpacked yesterday, where sale and purchase outside the APMC mandis will attract no cess, no tax. States stand to lose revenue as no tax can be imposed. Commission agents lose their commission. Once new trade areas develop, these markets may not require the old traditional commission agents. Their commission agents could look totally different, as many experts have suggested. In many North Indian states, there is actually a social contract between the farmer and the agent, the arthya. He will give a loan to the farmer and yes, he will recover it from the farmer's produce. It's far from a perfect system and exploitative as well. We'll stop here. The anxieties are part founded and look like some of them could have been allayed. Only if we didn't start talking so late and acted perhaps with such distrust. As I mentioned at the start, day one of those talks have been inconclusive. I'm Anubha Bhonsle. This is Newsworthy. Drop us a comment if there's more we can do. I hope this was worthy of your time.